Hello everyone and welcome back to the next installment of our 9.1 raid guides. This is Crzypck from Complexity Limit, and today we're going to show you how to kill Fatescribe Roh-Kalo in the Sanctum of Domination on Heroic mode. Fatescribe is a 3-stage encounter, but stage 2 is basically an intermission that'll occur at both 70% and 40% health on the boss. After completing the second stage 2, you'll enter stage 3. The stage 3 here is really just a combination of both stages 1 and 2. In stage 1, the boss throws several abilities at you that you and your raid will have to deal with. Invoke Destiny will put a large circle around the current tank that lasts 8 seconds. At the end of this, it'll explode, dealing a large bit of shadow damage to anybody within the circle and fall off damage to the rest of the raid. A Shadow of Destiny ad will then spawn from wherever the circle exploded, which will fixate on the tank who had the debuff. That tank will now take 75% increased damage for as long as the shade is alive, and if that shade manages to reach the tank, it'll explode and put a lethal dot on the raid. Your ranged DPS should swap immediately and annihilate this ad. Once the shade dies, a bunch of smaller, less dangerous ads called Fate Spawn Anomalies will spawn. These have a small casted ability that can be interrupted. You'll just want to group these up on the boss and blow them all up together. On top of that, the boss will buff itself every time the tanks swap with 3 stacks of a buff called Diviner's Probe. He'll use a stack of this roughly every 2 seconds, dealing a chunk of extra shadow damage to the tank. He'll also throw out a dot on random people called Twist of Fate, dealing mild shadow damage to them every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, and both of these abilities just need to be healed through. Call of Eternity is a debuff that'll go out periodically on several players, putting a large circle around them for 8 seconds, dealing ticking damage while it lasts. After 8 seconds, the circle explodes, dealing heavy damage to anybody standing inside of it, except for the person who actually had the debuff. This will then leave behind an orb on the ground called an Echo of Eternity. Every time a new set of Call of Eternity debuffs goes off and explodes, all existing Echo of Eternity orbs also explode and also deal damage to anybody within 20 yards. Because of this, you'll want to always drop the orbs around the edge of the room against the wall. The boss's last major ability here in stage 1 is called Fated Conjunction, which shoots lasers from the sides of the room. There's 2 formations of this you'll see. One where it's coming from one side of the room and shooting straight across through the middle, and one where it's 3 smaller lasers coming in almost a triangle formation. These will still shoot directly across the room, but this triangle formation actually leaves a lot less safe space. Anyone hit by the lasers will take a large chunk of shadow damage and increase the damage taken by subsequent lasers by 50% for a minute. You'll need to ensure the raid is standing in a safe spot so you don't get blasted by lasers. This is the kind of thing that you're probably only going to need to see once, and then you'll understand exactly where the safe spots are. Once the boss hits 70% health, and then later on 40% health, you'll enter stage 2, the intermission stage. Here, the boss will move to the center of the room and take 99% reduced damage. Now, you've probably noticed that the room itself has these 6 large rings. At the start of stage 2, all 6 of the rings will start spinning, and then 2 notable things will appear on each one of the rings. A blue rune, and then a blue target bracket. Your goal in this stage is to get all 6 runes into their respective target brackets. You have 40 seconds to do this, or the raid instantly wipes. To accomplish this, you'll need to spin the rings. Unfortunately, the rings are stationary by themselves. On the plus side though, several players get debuffed with Runic Affinity. If a player with this Runic Affinity debuff stands on top of one of the blue runes, it'll cause that ring to begin to spin. Importantly, you do need to be standing almost directly on top of the rune or it doesn't count you at all. The direction of the ring spin is based on how many Runic Affinity players are standing on that specific rune. An odd number of players will make the ring spin clockwise, an even number of players will make it spin counterclockwise. You cannot influence which players get the Runic Affinity debuff at all, so your raid leader will just have to make calls on the fly of who should go to what ring. To help with this, we recommend putting a raid marker on each ring to make communicating a little bit easier. While the debuffed players are sorting out the rings and the runes, there's other stuff going on for the rest of the raid. The entire raid will get the Unstable Accretion debuff, dealing moderate ticking damage every 3 seconds for the entire duration of stage 2. Fate Spawn Monstrosity ads will periodically spawn and need to be tanked. These do increasing amounts of physical damage to the tanks the longer they're alive, and also have a spell called Despair, which will do a chunk of AoE damage, but that can be interrupted. On top of all of that, Little fate fragment orbs will just kind of be floating through the encounter area. These deal a large bit of damage to you if you run onto them, and also slow you, so don't run into them. For all the people who don't have runic affinity, you'll want to group up near a set location to make healing through the ticking damage easier. Bring the fate spawn adds together and blow them up, and make sure you don't get hit by the little fate fragment orbs. They're really all over the place, but they are pretty easy to not get smacked in the face with. Just remember the 5 Ds of dodgeball: dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Once your team has successfully matched every rune to their target brackets, stage 2 ends and Fatescribe re-engages. You'll repeat stage 1 until 40% health, then do another stage 2 and have to deal with runes again. Complete that a second time, and then you'll enter stage 3. We recommend using Bloodlust immediately upon entering stage 3. Here, the boss will retain all of his stage 1 abilities exactly as they were, but he'll also get a watered down version of stage 2 ring spinning. He'll periodically cast Extemporaneous Fate, activating 2 of the rings. This will create the same runes on those 2 rings with the same target brackets. You'll get several players with that runic affinity debuff again, and those players have to deal with the runes. The other important difference here is that you only have 30 seconds to complete the runes, or the raid instantly wipes. This gets pretty wild here since you have so much going on, so stay on your toes and be careful. If the Fated Conjunction lasers come out, dodging them is usually more important than standing on the rune, unless you're down to the very last few seconds on your 30-second timer. If that's the case, eat the damn laser with the cooldown and stand on your rune. The boss will activate the rings every roughly 35 to 40 seconds during stage 3, so it's pretty much a non-stop ordeal to handle. Keep completing the runes, nuke down the boss, and kill him before you start to die. If you enjoyed this guide, remember to like it and make sure you're subscribed to the channel to catch all of our previews, guides, kill videos, and more. From the team here at Complexity Limit, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.